Injustice 2 is a long-awaited follow-up to Injustice Gods Among Us, made by the same team behind Mortal Kombat. It features a roster of some of the most popular and powerful characters from DC Comics. In the first game, the Joker is murdered by Superman after the Joker tricked Superman into doing some pretty horrible things. After this, Superman's regime is formed, and our beloved Kal-El becomes a tyrant, opposed by Batman and his team of rebels who stand against him. In the sequel, Injustice 2, Superman is imprisoned and Bruce Wayne is trying his best to rebuild what was lost when Superman took over. But a new threat, Brainiac, causes Batman and his friends and even his foes to work together to save the Earth. As a huge DC Comics fan, I've been waiting for a sequel to Injustice since I finished the first game back in 2013, and I'm happy to say that I think Injustice 2 is a worthy sequel and a great game on its own. The roster of characters is great and each character is so unique in their fighting styles and visual design, and speaking of visuals, Jesus, this game is a beauty. I know there have been better looking games that have come out recently, but that doesn't take away from the fact that the map designs, the character model designs, cinematics, area transitions, power moves, weapons and everything else you can think of look beautiful in full 1080p. Each character feels different, which is obviously what you want from any fighting game, but Injustice 2 really goes all out in making each character a unique experience to play with. The story mode isn't that long, although there are multiple times in the game where you can pick between two characters to play as, which leads to more game time and even a different ending. However, there are multiple times in the story that feel quite rushed. For example, some character arcs don't feature much change in location, instead having you stay in the same fighting area while a cinematic plays and another enemy enters for you to fight. The voice acting for some of the characters wasn't the greatest in some parts, but for the most part, it is serviceable. Batman and Harley Quinn's voices were still perfection. Characters such as Aquaman and Superman had some, in my opinion, iffy voice acting moments. Aquaman sounded like he was being very overdramatic throughout most of the game in the way he spoke, but maybe that might just be what they were trying to go for, which I suppose is fine. Now, the villain, Brainiac. Arguably one of my top 5 favourite DC villains. In Injustice 2, Brainiac serves as the main antagonist, and my opinion on how they handled him, I think he's great. His voice acting is fantastic, maybe the best in the game in my opinion. Jeffrey Combs' voice was like so intimidating and methodical. Just from his manner of speaking, you feel the presence that Brainiac brings to the table. You just feel how this guy means business. As is with these games, Brainiac doesn't make an appearance in a fight until the final confrontation, but he is introduced rather quickly and appears in a lot of cinematics up until the end of the game where you fight him. His visual design is amazing, every detail is just beautiful despite his ugly mug. Gameplay is fluid, fast-paced, exciting, sometimes rage-inducing, but in that addictive sense. You can customize your characters in so many ways, and with the impressive size of the roster of the characters for you to fight with, it's a game that won't get boring too quickly. I do wish there were more maps available, but I understand that in today's gaming world, there will probably be DLC that offers new maps and characters. But even now, there are enough maps to satisfy until future releases. That doesn't change the fact that I do wish there were just a few more maps, but what can you do? So let's get right into summing up the pros and cons of this game. The pros: great visuals, fluid, fun gameplay, great replay value, a very satisfying villain, and very impressive cinematics. The cons: the story was short and sweet, some of the voice acting wasn't the best, the story felt rushed in a lot of parts, and there's a small map choice. My final score for Injustice 2, despite those cons being rather important, I still enjoyed Injustice 2 enough to give it a solid 9.5 out of 10. Injustice 2 reached my personal expectations and exceeded them in some parts. Despite the cons I mentioned, I still enjoyed this game enough to give it a near perfect score. Keep in mind that this is just the opinion of one man. You may disagree, but if you were to take my word, I'd say this game is definitely worth your money. And now, I go back to continuing getting my ass kicked online. Thank you all for watching. Subscribe for more gameplay clips, reviews, and all things film related. I'm out. Peace.